we go. Welcome to this March 28th post-service discussion. And contrary to what you might think, this week's sermon was not an exercise in abstract art sermon, nor was it the attempt at a recreation of a 1976 kung fu movie. It was actually the result of terrible technical problems, which I take full responsibility for, and I am grateful to all of you who are here. JC wanted to go first.
I had time this morning to read the paper, and in today's paper there is a story about Danny Quinn. Who cleans up Gaddis Park. It is a compassionate cleanup. And I was fascinated. I read the whole thing out loud to Laleen. And at the end, he says, he knows he can only do so much and can for now that continuing to clean the park and help those living there. My intent was, he said, and still is, to continue to clean up the catastrophic piles of garbage along the river, and to do so with kindness, compassion, and respect for the people who are residing there. Yeah. I just was so moved in the story because he starts doing it. Some of the people who live there, quote unquote, started helping and started caring. And then other people started giving him money so he could buy tents and sleeping bags and things for them. And it seemed to me that this man is right up there with the deeds over creeds. He doesn't care what anybody's creed is. He knows what the deed is.
Right.
So that's just to celebrate that it's all possible.
Yeah, no, and that's so beautiful, but of course I think that, there's a reason why he's doing that. And, just to go a bit further is, one of the ways that we minister to people is through our actions. Pastor David, who's a very devout Christian, right? So his worldview is very Christ-centered, but he used to end his sermons by saying, friends, go out and vigorously preach the love of Christ. And if you have to, use your words.
Oh,
right. And there is something beautiful to that. And, so for, my God, that park, it needs all the love and care it can get. And the poor people who are, stuck there, need no less than that. And I don't know the man, but I would assume that there is a moral core that he's operating from, which is what makes it truly selfless.
Well, he says that he and his wife used to enjoy walking that area.
Yeah.
And then he saw the piles of garbage piling up, and he saw the people living there, and he realized that he had a personal loss in a place where he could relax and enjoy. Yeah. And so he set in to help make it better for the people who lived there.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got a core in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That and it's not mentioned in the article, as I recall.
Well, maybe they'll do a follow-up. It's a story that's worth telling for sure.
Yes.
I would like it if we might think about as a community, and again, this is tricky during COVID times, but as a church community would do like a park cleanup thing where like we just all meet at the park, 30 of us or so, and we walk the loop and pick up trash. With UU shirts on. I think that would be really cool. So, yeah.
That's a good idea.
Oh, thank you.
I already have a UU shirt.
Oh, great.
UUUC. From here, I bought it way before we moved here.
Even better. Yeah, Laleen wanted to go.
I can still wear it too.
We've actually done that in the past. We used to take pieces of road or highway. We're a little old now, so that might be a great incentive to help us bring in some younger people.
Yeah.
I have a thought that I need to puzzle with everyone upon, because I guess I don't agree with it. You said, Michael, in your talk, that justice must come from a right arbitrator of justice,
Mhm.
and that we don't get to serve as our own judge.
Mhm. Yep.
And I guess I really disagree with that.
Okay.
So I need to hear more of your thinking,
Okay.
because I'm just sitting there going,
Well, the question is, I don't think, is that, are we capable of discerning, reflecting, and judging and forgiving ourselves? You know, that is certainly an important step in one's religious or philosophical or spiritual life, right? That's crucial to our development as people. What I'm talking about is that if we have transgressed against society, so we'll take the most obvious example, say a murderer, right? In order for justice to be served, the murderer is not allowed to choose their own sentence, right? It has to come from an arbiter that is chosen by the society.
but I don't want to go to the extremes of those folks whose moral compass hasn't, probably never did work for them. And I guess what I'm hearing you say is that, in your view, religion really is the way to that moral compass. And I don't think that I agree with that either. And having sat through a number of days of atonement, it's never been my experience that that was anything but my own review against my own learned moral compass and standards for my right actions over the past year, and my own need and expectation to go back and do right where I might have done harm, or to do better where I could have done better. But you know, when you sit like that for a day, especially when you're not eating,
Yeah.
as one does fast, you know, you kind of get into the nitty gritty. And, you know, maybe it's just because my belief in a God is very different than yours, but
We've
I've
never
not
talked about it.
experienced that, you know, that need for something external to be a judge of me. Unfortunately, lots of people would like to.
You are not alone in that, my friend. Believe me, I share that sentiment. Right. So, to answer your question, the short answer would be yes. Religion is a path to redemption, but it depends on how you define religion. Right. We would have to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. And, you know, you say that your definition of God is probably very different. I don't know. We should sit down and have a discussion about what we're talking about when we're talking about God. The other thing is, if I'm not mistaken, one of the primary tenets in atonement in the Jewish tradition is to go to the person that you have transgressed against and ask, what actions could you take to make that atonement, right? So, in order to earn their forgiveness or receive their forgiveness. They might give it out of grace, but they have the right to ask something of you.
Yes.
Yeah. And so again, there is the sense that justice is communal, right? It's not just up to you.
But I have to be the one who decides that I've done something wrong, so that moral compass still rests within me.
That's true. That's true. And that's where reflection comes from, right? So reflection, growth, spiritual growth, all of those things. But when we're talking about justice, right? Justice, by definition, in the definition I'm working with, is a communal endeavor.
But even if that person does not forgive me or have me atone in some way, it's still up to me to do right.
Yeah.
In other words, to forgive myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Absolutely.
self-correct and not, commit the same kind of
Yeah.
experience again. So it still feels like that compass
So
rests side.
in the scenario that you're talking about, justice is served by them withholding forgiveness, but you still have to move on in your life. Right? That's the punishment that they have decided when it comes to that transgression.
But my moving on comes from self-forgiveness. And I think if we don't have the capacity to forgive ourselves, we probably live a pretty unhappy life.
100%.
And carrying a hell of a lot of guilt and who knows whatever else.
100%. Totally.
So I can't leave my own sense of self on the judgment of someone else.
Nor
If
should
I
you.
truly feel that I have done wrong and I have myself atoned for that,
One of the
then
things.
it would be nice if the other person would graciously forgive me. But if not,
Yeah, I don't want to run the risk of beating a dead horse. I would say the only disagreement that we really seem to be having is one of definitions.
Yes.
You know?
Semantics.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
And
well, it feels to me that your belief system is tied more to some form in any fact of not organized, of just religion. And we know that people forever and ever have chosen all kinds of varieties of religion to try to answer the things that they couldn't answer for themselves.
right.
And that somehow, as time has passed, that need has become a tighter and more rigid moral arbitrator of our behaviors.
Oh, yeah, okay, so I was with you up until that statement. Religion as an organization of faith, right? So religion being the broad definition of a corporate faith, is not any particular path to salvation. Religion as a reflection on the great thoughts and transcendent writings of the past, I think is. So, yeah. Sharon has her hand up. I'm sorry. Yeah, Sharon has been wanting to get in for a while, so let me go to her, and then we'll come back if Go ahead, Sharon.
I was going to offer that it's a matter of semantics as well.
Yeah.
Because it sounds to me that Laline is talking about self-evaluation.
Yeah.
Whereas judgment comes from another.
Right.
Oh.
The short version of what I would offer is that justice is different than forgiveness.
Yes.
Right.
I would agree.
Yeah. And so and that's the primary distinction that I would keep in mind.
Yeah. May I go on with other comments?
I don't see why not. And unless Laline
wants to go.
Do you feel well?
The only last thought I had that I didn't finish was that as our religions have progressed in modern day, many of them have gotten so tighter and tighter and tighter that they have become that moral compass. And the rules and the regulations and the scriptures, have defined behavior so much.
Some have.
And that makes it even, for me, a stronger argument that faith and belief, depending on who and what you have faith and belief in, cannot serve as one's moral compass.
Right.
If anything, it makes one feel bad.
Well, all things are corruptible, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm talking about religion, I would also be talking about communism in the Soviet Union as a type of state religion. The Juche in North Korea is a type of state religion, right? And those are great examples of the constricting quality of dogmatic belief systems. And you're
Mhm.
100% right. There are some organizations and some belief systems that have gone above and beyond to try and constrain people, and I don't think those are healthy for human endeavors. I completely agree. So,
Thank you, Don.
oh no, no, they're good thoughts. They're very good thoughts. Sharon, please go ahead.
Okay, it's another thing about semantics. In your sermon, you said actions need to be greater than charity.
Did I say that?
Wait a minute.
Well, I could have it backwards or misconstrued or something.
Okay.
So what did you say?
Well, I don't know exactly, because I work off of an outline, and so there is always the possibility of misspeaking. Um,
Okay. Well, what I
but
wanted to know, and maybe this
oh,
will help,
I think
you know what it
okay.
was?
It had-
I think I know.
Yeah, Martha's seen it, listened to it
Yeah.
twice. Maybe she remembers.
Well, you were talking about the UU deeds, not creeds,
Mhm.
and then you said, what do you say? What you say versus actions?
Yes.
Actions tell us the quality of character, and then it goes on from there. Was that
Mhm.
where you were talking about, Sharon?
No, it was
Okay.
prior to that.
I think what you're talking about is that is the idea of work versus charity, right?
Work versus
Good
charity.
works
Oh,
versus
yeah.
charity.
Okay,
Yes,
so
there
what
you go.
I want is a definition of charity.
Right. So the definition that I gave is that charity is a good action done with no self-interest in mind, right? Where you're not receiving anything from it. Whereas good works, you could profit from them at the same time as helping other people, right?
Stop it.
So you mean like what was the example? The person was doing good so that he could, what did you say, build something?
Well, sure. Yeah. Okay. So, if you think of like somebody like Nikolai Tesla or Thomas Edison, right? Those individuals were very, very self-interested, for their inventions. They made a lot of money from their inventions, but at the same time as acquiring a lot of wealth from their inventions, they improved the world in a very tangible way.
Hmm. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So
I see you.
that
I
would,
see you, Lurley. I just want to make sure that Sharon gets her thoughts out.
well, I have so many, but
Yeah.
I've come up with the example. So I hope I don't get arrows shot at me.
There's no error.
Vaccine developers.
Yeah, that's what you talked about.
Hmm.
Well, and then they responded by not charging for it or by only charging the government
Right. Right. And
so that we can freely go and get our protection.
and
Somebody
and
else has paid for it.
and it's easy to make the argument that that is one of government's roles, right? Is to provide that protection and welfare
Yeah.
for its citizens. Yeah.
You don't look convinced, Sharon.
Well, I have been on a news fast because I get depressed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I hear
So I didn't hear that they were paying for everybody's vaccine. Is that true? They are paying for everybody's vaccine?
you. I don't know.
As far
Yes,
as I know,
the government has bought lots, as in,
all.
Mhm.
well, not
And
all,
also-
but lots of an order here, an order here, an order. Those are lots.
Yeah.
They bought
Well,
as many as they can possibly get their hands on.
I don't want to get bogged down into the minutia. I want to make sure that we're addressing the greater point.
I think we have to separate out the scientists in the process of developing from the vaccine,
Okay.
companies,
Well-
because I've known David Ho for years and years. I mean, during the AIDS epidemic, and that man worked tirelessly when no one would even admit that AIDS,
But the
existed.
point, the greater point, the point that I was, and I'm I'm sorry that it wasn't as clear as it could have been, is that self-interest and good and improving the world are not at odds with each other. They
Right.
don't have to be at odds with each other, right? That's the only point that yeah, that I was trying to make with that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Laura Lee.
Okay, if this cat is I'm gonna strangle this cat.
Mm.
She goes outside, and then she comes back in, and she goes outside. Okay. I needed to clarify works and charity. And I've been trying to take some personal evaluation or whatever. And the example is I fix breakfast for this homeless man every morning, and I drop it off in front of the city hall for him. Okay, I do that. I don't want any notoriety for it, but I get a smile from him. He engages with me. And it's been a highlight of my day. Now, am I doing that? The reward I get, is that works, or is that charity? I mean, I'm getting a personal satisfaction, a great deal of personal satisfaction out of doing that.
Right. Yeah, that is why these concepts need to be fleshed out, right? There's so much of language that we just take for granted, that we're all talking about the same things because we all use the same words. And so there was an episode of Friends, right? I just assumed that everybody watched Friends in the 90s. And Phoebe and Joey were having this intense debate about doing good deeds. And Joey was making the statement that, good deeds make you feel good, therefore you're receiving a reward from them.
Yeah.
And eventually Phoebe ends up giving a whole bunch of money to PBS because she hates PBS, and the idea that she would give money to PBS, an organization that she hates, was proof that she could do something that was just purely charitable. And of course, the punchline at the end of the episode is Phoebe's like, "And I got over my hatred of PBS. That makes me feel so good." And then she realizes, So short answer is, that we are complex creatures. We have, and our relationship to other humans are very complex interactions. And so what I would argue is that feeling, that rush of whatever chemical it is, probably serotonin or oxytocin, is evident of the nobility of the human spirit. The fact that you can feel good from doing good is proof that we are a fundamentally noble people.
So it would be, what would it be? Works? Because I received a
Well, what I would argue is that there's not that much of a difference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You are a good person.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. If your compass is true, there's not that much difference. That's the point. Right. JC.
I want to talk about something that I'm really not very versed in, except I really believe in it, which is not unusual for Unitarians. But the concept of spiritual economics includes Laura Lee's good feeling as part of the payoff for what you do economically too. So if you give money to some organization that is doing something that is beyond, if I give money to an organization that is doing something beyond my capacity to do, but I give them my participation and support so that they go ahead and do that, whether it's doctors in the jungle or what, but I get to feel good I get to feel the gift having been given from my donation. And to me, when I read that book, which I need to continue to read, but I loaned it to somebody, I can also give a charitable donation and not know anything about where it goes.
Right.
But the person who received it, because they received that gift from me, is obligated to pass on the gift part, not the money, not the whatever, and not anything to do with why I gave them the money, but something that they see needs being done, like Mr. Quinn realizing he had a tent in his basement that he didn't need anymore, and he gave it to a person who was just sleeping under a tree.
That's right.
So the value of the gift is added to the money and makes the money less important as the measure of the transaction. I just said something really important. I hope somebody wrote it down.
It's recorded. Yeah, it's recorded. No, but you're right. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, where I'm going with
Great.
that.
Great. Yeah.
That usually happens. I really don't know where I'm going until I get there. No, that was it.
Fair enough. Sometimes those are the best trips, JC. Yeah, I don't have anything to add because I love it. I think you're absolutely right. Julianne had her hand up, and then Martha, did you have your hand up?
No, I was itching
okay.
my ear.
Okay, so we'll do Julianne, then Laura Lee.
I just wanted to comment that JC's statement is exactly what I put on some of the year-end tax letters, that the only benefit that you received is the good feeling you get from giving your library money, you know.
Yeah.
But isn't that though the motivation that many of us have?
Yes, right.
I mean, I look at the things that come in and things that really mean something to me. Those are the places that get my check.
Well,
yeah.
And when you think about, you know, I guess we could put another category if we wanted to when we're considering this, and that is sacrifice, right?
Yes.
When you give, like, especially to the church or the library or, you know, or whatever group is receiving what you worked hard for, you know, that is you giving up something that's valuable in order to serve a greater purpose. And there is, again, you know, I don't mean to overuse this word, but there is a deep nobility in that. Had something else, but I can't remember. Laura Lee, you wanted to say something.
Okay. This throws me off. If you're giving to a charitable organization, isn't it tax deductible?
Yes, of course.
Oh, sometimes, and sometimes not.
Yeah.
So is that my reward?
Well, I think the reward is the good, the knowledge that you have improved the world in some way.
It's the money. One minute. It's the money-based part of it.
Right.
But that's not the gift. That's still dealing with money.
Yeah.
And the reason for doing it is a money thing. But the gift is the thing that makes you smile when you see the person enjoy the food you've brought.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's the gift.
I want to put that in perspective
He'll
too.
wave at me as I drive by too. It's really cute.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. Laleen, go ahead.
I think it's really important to separate out amounts of money. Sometimes we get stuck on thinking that, you know, there are amounts involved. And I can't help but recall my mother, even back in the days when we were living in a government housing project on welfare, her putting her dollar in an envelope to go to a couple of different places. And while she was, by our country's standards, you know, at or slightly below the poverty line in terms of income almost all of her life, had it not been supplemented by us kids. She still always wrote out these checks to places that mattered. And I don't think they were ever more than $10. But for her, the doing was, such an important thing. And when I went through her checkbook the last couple of years of her life when she couldn't, really continue doing it, she never missed the heartbeat at age 85, 86, 87. And so she died at 90. And I made sure at 88, 89, and 90, those same checks went out.
Oh.
So literally, what you do, what any of us do, is as huge as our heart is in the doing. Good morning, Glennis.
And it goes, yeah. We've been joined by Glennis, thankfully. But there's another layer to it as well, is that when there is a cause that you believe in, when you give to it, no matter how small that gift is, when you take the effort to give to it, that means you've got skin in the game. Right.
That's right.
And there is, something that economists use, a term that we ignore especially in our modern society, and that is social capital. And social capital is the kind of relationships and jobs, maybe odd jobs that you do for your neighbor, like you watch your neighbor's kid and then they take out your trash, and and that these are, it's as crucial to the economic system as the actual money capital is. And I think we could talk about that more as a community and as a society, because I see us becoming so disconnected. Laleen sent me a beautiful video this morning. And I found that so wonderful, about people reconnecting. So thank you for that, Laleen. Yeah.
For the tireless efforts of the Sunday Services Committee over the last year.
That's right.
No money in hand, no reward.
Yeah.
It just gave me a headache just thinking about it right now, right here, both sides.
Oh, so Glennis, I saw that you came in. I didn't know if you had anything to say or.
Well, not specifically, and I apologize for being late. The time crept up on me, and so I don't know what's already been said and what's already been done, but I did really enjoy the message. And I have nothing specific to comment on until I hear other comments.
Fair enough. Well, we're glad you're here. Late or not. Go ahead, Martha.
What helped me a lot is I'm a person that needs a cognitive construct before I can really remember anything. I don't do well with this. When you started out making sure that we understood the difference between a straw man and a steel man.
Yeah.
And all this time when you've talked, I had philosophy way back in the dark ages, over almost 60 years ago. So you have to forgive the fact that I've forgotten much of it. So thank you very much for that. And that did help. And what also I was interested in is your discussion of the televangelists.
Oh yeah.
And the reduction concept of theology, and how that continues to constrain our society to this day, because we have so many places of worship that are run by people that are really not educated, not well read, or whatever you want to say. They're not. I don't want to make them sound like they're less than. I don't mean that, but
no,
in their own way, they have not had the breadth of exposure to thought and ideas that maybe is necessary to provide a way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
And that's where we are falling down as a society. I see that. Yeah. There's so many people who are really, I try to read everything, try to go into everything with all these thoughts. And then to have somebody say, well, it's just as simple as and then they're done with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and maybe that's the economy of don't want to expend my energy. Can we talk about that, or is that
No,
something that
I think that's what keeps me up at night, to be
that
honest.
really concerns me a
Yeah.
lot?
And I think, Laleen, that was the point that you were making at the end of our initial discussion, you know. And yeah, well, so okay, first off, steelman as a term, it has only been used in like the past 4 years or five
Okay.
years, when we're having discussions on, opposing viewpoints. So you have not forgotten anything.
Okay.
It's,
Well, the
but
straw man argument, I guess, is from philosophy. Is that
it
right?
is, yeah, yeah. It comes from a time when archers would be practicing, so they would roll out a straw target,
Right.
and
Okay.
since it was easy to hit, right, that's how it got its name. It's like
Okay.
you're dealing with an argument that's easy to take down because you've misrepresented it, right?
Mhm.
Whereas steelman, is the opposite. So yeah, my frustration, and this goes with everything that I consider to be religion or dogmatic, right? And where people think that the world is constructed in such a way that we have easy solutions to our problems, right? And I don't believe that. I don't believe that our problems have simple solutions. I don't actually think our problems have any solutions, right? But that's where the bulk of my frustration lies.
And there was a letter to the editor in the paper today, and it was from this woman who I don't know her, but I should know her.
Tracy Reed?
Yes. And she's talking about how so many times we try to solve things on just 3 different levels. And she shared about a professor of hers that encouraged her to think down 16. We're talking about intersectionality. So, all of these things. And this is what is happening. Everybody's looking for a quick fix. And there's no one right. Every situation requires some really deep thought, how it affects all these different things.
Well, I hate to keep harping on Thomas Sowell, but
Yeah.
Thomas Sowell, it's
Is Thomas Sowell, is it S-O-L-E?
Sowell.
Sowell. Okay, thank you. I'm not real familiar with
Or
that.
maybe it's one L. Yeah. He's primarily an economist, but
Okay.
but a very, very deep thinker. He served at Stanford for a long time.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Oh, sure thing. No, we got crickets now. I'll call on people.
No.
Oh, okay. Hey, Kim.
When you were talking about charity and deeds and how you get rewarded for it from God, so I was looking up stuff like that because as an Adventist, we do a lot of charitable work all around the world, but we don't go boasting about it or anything. I looked up Matthew 6:1-4, where it says in the Bible that if you do your charitable deeds, whatever it is you're doing, and you're quiet about it, God will reward you in the future. So you just have to, when you're doing good things for people, whether it's a small thing or whether it's worldwide, you just don't go around bragging about it. So when I help my parents out with stuff or I help friends out with stuff, I don't go around, wow, I helped you guys out all the time. I just do it. And in the process, it does make you feel better, but you're still not going around bragging about it. And I think that's the key point to being charitable towards others. Sometimes you'll hear someone gave a lot of money, but it's unknown because they don't want to be known that they gave money. So I think that's where you got to think about it. Are you being charitable because you want everyone to know how great you are? Or are you being charitable because you really care? And that's the difference in being charitable.
So that makes me think of a few things. One is think of the number of foundations that are named after
Mhm.
people, that are named
I'm
after the
just
people
thinking of that right now.
started it. Yeah. So, and I went through this, I see you, JC. I went through this in my youth, a very, very Christian phase in my teenage years, where I was thinking very deeply about that Matthew verse, and which is really a carryover from earlier Jewish thought about the necessity of giving, but also the necessity of keeping that hidden, right? So as to not draw attention to yourself for that giving. And it wasn't until I saw an episode of The Simpsons where Bart and Lisa are walking down this downtown with these old Jewish men playing chess, and they're talking to the rabbi, and one man says to the rabbi, "But what if by being an example of charity, I inspire others to be charitable as well?" And that really messed me up for a while. Episode of The Simpsons, because it's true. Because if people, there is a communal effect. It's like when we were talking about the park cleanup early on in this discussion, one of the things that Reverend Annie would talk about is that when she would go on her walks picking up trash around her neighborhood, that would other people, either for embarrassment because they didn't want this poor woman to be picking up their trash, or because they were inspired to do the same thing. Both of them are valuable, that they began picking up their own trash. So being an example is worthy. It is, but again, it's like, what is at the core of your behavior? Is your inspiration for being charitable to secure your name in the annals of history, to be able to undo some of the damage that you've done maybe as a person? Is it those things? Or is it because you genuinely care about your community or about your family or about, those good reasons to be charitable, I would say, right? That's the distinction. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, JC.
It's JC.
Yeah, JC.
Oh, I think this has something to do with one of the things that instantly infuriates me is when I speak of something like we're talking about here, and someone will say, "That's just not human nature."
Oh, yeah.
And it just makes me want to slap them. I mean, so mad. Because it is in human nature to reach out and assist. Mm-hmm. It truly is. I mean, walking down the street, you can see somebody just needs a hand. Mm-hmm. I mean, actual up off the street or whatever.
Yeah. And
those things, to me, I'm trying to find out what. It as if my values just reached into my arm and did that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't go through my head. It went through my heart and into the world.
Right.
And those things help me define myself. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, yeah, I take value of that. And when a person would then say, it's not in human nature to do that, I see that person dragging human nature down to where, in order for it to survive, it has to have something outside of it, mm-hmm. save it, or do something. So anyway.
Well, no, it's a pure. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and remember that thing you were working on? She was working on some kind of a project when she was making grants. And the project had been, I gather, written by people who knew how to help other people. But in this instance, they didn't include the value of the woman in the family that was trying to be helped. You remember what I'm saying? And when she just said, you have to know what the woman wants to do or what the woman brings to it, they would just look at her like, What do you mean? This is men doing work and da 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 da. No, because in what? It's in
It was in 1973 in a Mexican project for improving the lives of immigrants into this country. And the woman, of course, who is the center of social, cultural, familiar, everything in a Mexican family, was just completely ignored. I mean, they were looking at the man's job skills gained and could he provide better, and they were getting the kids into school to make sure they got a basic education. And you know, she was left home cleaning. Yeah. And I'm looking at, I mean, this was an HEW program that had money from HEW and Department of Labor. It had millions of dollars back in '73. And I'm looking at this project and I'm going, so the whole project changed. It got redesigned within a year because we did one questionnaire for the women in the project, and it totally changed the project and the outcome.
And that's speaking to this article that Martha brought up, saying all of these things matter: geography, sociology, political climate, religious ideals, cultural norms, et cetera, up to 15 things that hinge on absolutely everything. And if you don't see how it fits into these things, what you're going to do to try to help probably goes down the drain.
Yeah.
So
doubt that. Look at the gay and lesbian movement, and look at the Black Lives movement now.
Yeah.
Miss any of the 16?
There is, and there's so much there, you know, and I mean, when it comes to the household, you know, and ignoring the role of what happens in the household, is that ignoring that element of social capital. You know, when it comes to people talking about human nature, I share your frustration, because that is pure Dunning-Kruger. You know, people who have no idea what they're talking about when they're talking about human nature, just because they listen to some of their base impulses, and some of us also listen to, from time to time, some of our base impulses, does not diminish the elegance of the human spirit. But what is human nature? You know, well, I believe, I've made no secret of this, I believe that the best explanation for human behavior is evolutionary psychology, right? Is that there are certain behaviors that encode themselves into us, that are passed on by generations, that secured our survival in the past. So take a look at the deer that are outside. If you've ever seen a deer give birth, that baby deer is up and running in moments, right? It does not take that baby deer very long. Humans are not that way. And the reason is that humans have to finish their fetal development outside of the mother. The reason for that being that their heads are so large that their bodies can't support their heads, so their bodies have to grow into their heads. Now, what does that mean? It means that human beings are incredibly intelligent, but it also means that in the early phases of our existence, human beings are unbelievably vulnerable. And so in order to see to the well-being of infants, evolution has encoded us with a kind of communalism and interest in the well-being of our fellow humans. Now, that's a very simplistic and basic explanation of a very complex process, but you know, if we're talking about human nature at its most fundamental, that's what we're talking about. I can clear a room. Is everybody bored now?
I'm just hanging on every word, Michael. It makes it's very edifying.
Oh, thanks.
Well, and I really like that your final words. God does not need good works, but your neighbor does. Does that not sum it up? Absolutely.
And that,
I mean, whether God thinks that's what should be done or not is not important. It's what am I going to do for my neighbor?
That is, and I wrestled with that, because Martin Luther was not a particularly gentle person.
No.
You know, ever read The Peasant Revolts in Germany by Friedrich Engels, I think it's by Friedrich Engels. Somebody's going to fact check me on that. It's a remarkable read, and it's a remarkable insight into Martin Luther as an individual. However, even a broken clock, right? Is
Tells time
right.
twice a day.
Twice a day. Well, it seems like we're wrapping up. It'd be nice to hear from somebody who hasn't spoken yet, Paul or Glennis. You don't have to. No.
Well, I actually have thought a lot about the concept of not seeking recognition for anything that you do good, and I've come across falls across a lot of different religions and a lot of different schools of thought, and mine is more of the I guess you could say New Age, but not really. It's modified more or less. Anyway, I have a set of oracle cards that I pull one for every day. There's a message to it, and one of them is quietly serve. And that absolutely means do not seek recognition. You're just helping. You're just serving people. And that is something that I've actually already taken to heart and fully believe that is really the only way to go. Because it isn't about you. it's about who you're helping.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And it's about that you're helping.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But you don't have to broadcast that. It just is,
Right.
Paul.
Well, this is a little bit off topic.
It's okay.
I'm very true to my Libra self, and sometimes I have to weigh things back and forth, and it's just a very interesting conversation. But I will usually have like my comment 3 or 4 hours from now.
You can phone it in, Paul.
Actually, we're thinking of possibly having a later discussion time, like Tuesday.
You can always write them in on the YouTube channel. You can write your comment in after the, on this recording.
That reminds me. Well, first off, Paul and I are having coffee tomorrow, so we'll.
All right.
Right. There you go.
Perfect.
But I'm another Libra. I get it.
But second to that, my goodness, thank you, Glennis, because I have been meaning to ask you all to comment on YouTube videos. It helps so much with the algorithms to make sure that our videos are seen. So please do that. Okay. Sorry, Paul, did you get your thought?
One more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
This is an advertisement.
Yeah.
I went to Walla Walla this week. To see my old doctor, and I stopped at the local grocery store and picked up a bunch of Walla Walla sweet onion starts.
Yeah.
If anybody like some Walla Walla sweet onions, I've got a bunch of them. I can put my phone number on our little comments here, and you can call me.
Well, I'll tell you what. Anybody who wants them, let me know. I'll give you Paul's phone number, right? Because you all have contact.
Okay.
Sharon has her. Sharon has her hand up.
Whenever I've tried to comment on Facebook, it says that I am signing on to be to have my own channel. And ask me to do all of this rigmarole.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid it?
Well, I don't know about that. YouTube. Well, I'm talking about YouTube.
Do it on YouTube.
Yeah, do it on YouTube.
I beg your pardon.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Glad I asked.
Real quick. Since we've got only a few minutes, can I get a general?
With YouTube.
I don't know. We'll talk. Well, yeah, we'll talk about it later. Deeds from Creeds. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I have to think about it.
Yeah, me too.
All right, sideways.
Yeah.
Sideways. Okay, we can. Yeah. Well, the issue is I have trouble with the concept of creed, and maybe it's a semantic thing.
Fair enough.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good.
I like that word semantic. It covers a lot of sins.
So Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not as versed in Unitarian Universalism to know this answer. Were you thinking of a particular creed?
Our 7 principles.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
well
what I
then
have.
that clarifies that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that our actions ought to stem from
Okay.
the 7 principles.
Okay.
Then I can vote for that.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, hearing nothing else, I guess we can call it a day.
Thank you for a very
yeah.
good talk.
Yeah.
Appreciate.
Thank you all.
the-
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to go back to it. It had a lot of points that I wish I could remember at this point. So
Not
to put out this sparkling comment, but
oh.
since I can't remember, I'm actually going to go back because it was a good sermon.
Well, the technical
Pull up
problems
the
didn't
count.
help with that. Yeah. Yeah. So
That added to it, so.
I know. All right. Well, thank you all, especially the disagreement. That's my favorite part. I'll see you. I'll see you next week. Much love to you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.